Imagine you're living 30,000 years ago, and loneliness isn't sadness, it's the sound of a predator approaching. Now imagine that same alarm still fires every time your phone stays silent. Your brain never got the update. You felt it, in a crowded room, on a busy street, scrolling through faces at 2 in the morning. That hollow signal underneath everything. Most people never question it. They assume something is wrong with them. But here's the thing, nothing is wrong with you. Something very old inside you is doing exactly its job. And the feeling you carry right now is older than language itself. Let's slow down for a moment, because loneliness is one of those words we use without ever defining. It isn't sadness. Sadness has shape. Sadness has a cause, an end. Solitude isn't loneliness either. It feels like a warm room with the door closed. Loneliness is different. It's an ache when the people around you don't match those you feel truly connected to. You can have 1,000 followers and feel it. You can share a bed with someone and feel it. You can be surrounded by family at a table and still feel it crawling under the skin. Scientists believe your brain treats this feeling the way it treats hunger. It's a biological signal, a demand, a red light on the dashboard. When you're thirsty, your body isn't punishing you, it's asking for water. When you're lonely, your body isn't broken, it's asking for connection. Everyone alive has felt this signal. Almost nobody names it out loud. And that silence is part of the story we are about to tell. But the first lonely humans weren't even fully human yet. Once you see how this signal traveled, from a plane in East Africa, through a world that didn't exist until 1600, through factory smoke, all the way to the glow of your phone, you'll notice something disturbing about the whole story. Loneliness didn't just happen to us. It was quietly weaponized. Start with the savanna.
Picture a small band, 20 hominids walking across an open plain in East Africa. The grass is tall, the horizon is wide. There are predators everywhere, and none of them care about your feelings. Being alone here is not a mood. Being alone is a death sentence. If you fall behind the group, you don't come back home again. If the tribe rejects you, you starve. Your body knows this. Your genes remember it in the code. And so evolution installs a warning system. Your brain builds an alarm that fires when social distance widens. That alarm is what we now call loneliness. Not decoration, not weakness. It's ancient survival wiring at work.
It's the same category of signal as pain from a burning hand. It literally uses the same wiring. A researcher named John Cacioppo spent his life studying this. He argued that loneliness is real social pain. He backed it up with brain scans. When excluded from a simple game, the same regions light up, as when someone is physically hurt. Rejection literally hurts because your brain can't tell the two events apart. Every time someone left you on red, every awkward silence at dinner, every ignored hallway hello you gave, a circuit inside your skull fired the same way it would if a stone had struck your ribs. That circuit is 30,000 years old at minimum. It kept your ancestors alive. It's why you exist. And it does not know it's the 21st century yet. It's still guarding a savanna long gone. For most of history, this alarm rarely went off. Humans lived in tight, unbroken groups every single day. You woke up next to the same people every morning. You ate with them, hunted with them, buried them. There was no privacy, no personal brand, no lonely apartment. There was just the tribe, always the tribe. Then, roughly 10,000 years ago, something quiet changed. Agriculture arrived, and with it, everything else began shifting. Villages replaced camps. But even then, loneliness as we know it barely existed as a concept anywhere. Ancient languages don't have a good word for it. The Greeks talked about philia, deep shared life friendship. The Romans talked about solitudo, but they meant physical aloneness, not emotional ache. That distinction really matters here. In monastic traditions, hermits walked into the desert on purpose. Isolation was a spiritual tool, not a wound. When Christian mystics fled to caves, they weren't running from other people. They were running toward God. They expected community with the divine to fill the space. Read the letters of ancient philosophers carefully. Read the diaries of medieval monks. You'll find grief, longing, despair, boredom on almost every single page. But that particular modern flavor, standing in a crowd feeling invisible, appears almost nowhere in this text. Because community was the default operating system. It was the water people swam in, quietly, without noticing it. Loneliness as a private inner condition is a strangely young idea in the long story of humanity itself, until one invention made strangers of neighbors. Here's where history takes a sharp, unexpected turn in our story. Linguists have combed through old English texts. The word loneliness barely appears before the year 1600. When it does show up, it usually just means being physically alone, like a distant island in the sea. The emotional weight we give it today, that hollowed-out ache, is genuinely new in human language and heart. Something had to happen for that meaning to bloom. And what happened was the Industrial Revolution itself arriving. Imagine you are living in a small English village in 1750. You know every face along the road. Your grandparents are buried down the road. Your work happens in the same square mile where you were born. Now fast forward 100 years. Factories have opened in the cities. Young people leave the village behind them. They move to smoky towns where nobody knows their name. They rent a room. They work a factory shift. They come home to strangers. The tribe, for the first time in human history, is scattered on purpose. Families atomize. Neighbors become anonymous. And a new feeling floods into that empty space inside the human heart. The Romantic poets noticed it first. Wordsworth wandered lonely as a cloud. Byron wrapped it in velvet gently. Suddenly, loneliness wasn't just a problem. It became an aesthetic, a signature of the sensitive modern soul. Underneath the poetry, something structural was happening. Humans had lived in tribes for 100,000 years. That entire way of living was being dismantled in a single lifetime. The rehearsal for the 20th century. Because the 20th century didn't just continue the trend, it accelerated it dramatically across every dimension of life. First, the suburbs. Rows of identical houses, each one designed for a single small family unit inside. Then the car, which turned every trip into a private metal capsule, sealed off from every neighbor around. Then television, which replaced the storyteller by the fire with a glowing box in the corner of rooms. Then the single household, so recent your great-grandmother would have found it impossible to picture clearly. In 1900, almost nobody lived alone. Today, single-person households are the fastest-growing category on Earth. A political scientist called this bowling alone.
Americans used to belong to leagues, unions, churches and clubs. Then, quietly, they stopped. They still went bowling, but they went alone, with nobody sitting on the bench. Multiply that across every hobby and ritual, you get a culture whose social fabric fins one invisible thread. And your body pays. Studies show chronic loneliness raises the risk of heart disease, dementia, stroke, early death. One famous estimate compared it to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Not a metaphor, an actual measurement. Your ancient alarm, ringing constantly with no relief, wears the body out slowly from the inside every day. Then, the internet promised to fix it forever. You remember the promise, or you were born inside of it. The web was going to connect everyone. Distance would disappear. Nobody would ever be alone again, they said.
In some ways, it delivered. You can talk to a friend across an ocean in real time, miraculous. But something else happened underneath. Social media multiplied your contacts and thinned your connections at the same time. It replaced the slow, mutual, sometimes boring work of friendship with a fast stream of likes and glances. Turns out, your brain cannot fake its way to fullness. A heart icon is not a hand on shoulder. And so, paradoxically, the more connected we became, the more the ancient alarm inside started ringing loudly, especially for the youngest among us. Surveys show teenagers and young adults are the loneliest generations on record. The very people who grew up fluent in these tools report the emptiest inner rooms of any generation. Something else emerged too: parasocial bonds. The strange one-way intimacy you feel with a streamer or a podcaster. A face that appears in your bedroom every night through the glowing rectangular screen resting in your hand. Your brain treats them as tribe members, but they don't know your name. They can't hold you crying. A subtle hunger builds, invisible on the outside, deafening on the inside, where nobody else can hear it. Governments have started to notice. In 2018, the United Kingdom appointed a minister for loneliness itself. Japan followed. Public health officials began classifying it as an epidemic, on par with obesity and with smoking. The algorithm in your pocket was never designed to make you feel loved. It was designed to keep scrolling. And keeping you scrolling and making you feel loved are, as it turns out, almost opposite goals entirely. But the real revelation isn't about phones at all. Zoom out over this entire history and notice something. From the savanna to the smartphone, loneliness was never the enemy. Loneliness was always the messenger, all along. It's a signal. It's your body telling you that a fundamental need is not being met right now. Getting angry at loneliness is like getting angry at your fuel gauge for showing empty inside the car. The problem isn't the gauge. The problem is that we've built a civilization that keeps the tank low. Think of thirst. When thirsty, you don't panic or feel ashamed. You drink water. The signal quiets down. Loneliness works the same way, but our culture has forgotten how to answer it. It demands a specific response. Not more contacts, not more content, not more noise. Genuine connection. And genuine connection has a real shape. Studies show quality of bonds beats quantity every time. One person who knows you beats 1,000 acquaintances. Small rituals reset the alarm. A weekly dinner, a daily walk with a friend, a voice call, not text. Your body reads these as evidence the tribe still exists. The alarm turns down. The signal finally completes. And here's the twist most people miss. Shame around loneliness makes it worse, not better, over time inside. When you feel it and hide it, your brain interprets that as further proof of your own exclusion. You become lonely about being lonely. It compounds. But the moment you name it out loud, the loop breaks. Everyone else is carrying the same signal quietly. They just weren't allowed to say so out loud until now. One quiet shift changes your whole week. So, what do you actually do? Not tomorrow, not next year, this week. First, name the feeling instead of fighting it. When you notice the ache, say it like a scientist would. That is my loneliness alarm. It is doing its job. Nothing is wrong with me, just doing its job. That reframe softens the shame layer. Second, aim for one genuine conversation per day, every single day this week. Not a transaction, not a work update. A real question and a real answer, exchanged with a real person. It can last 3 minutes. Your ancient wiring counts it. Third, choose shared activity over shared screens together. Walking, cooking, building side by side. Humans bonded this way for hundreds of thousands of years before conversation. Fourth, reach out first. This is the hardest and the most important step in this entire practice. Always. The lonely mind whispers that nobody wants to hear from you. Send the message anyway. Break the loop first. And remember the deepest thing this history has to teach you today. You are not broken. You are not alone. You are a 30,000-year-old creature living in a world that was invented last Tuesday, essentially. The mismatch is not your fault. The signal is the oldest, most honest part of you, asking for connection. It's asking for the oldest, most honest thing: to be known, truly known by another human being nearby. There is one more question worth asking now. Is loneliness contagious? Can it spread through a group like weather? Researchers have started to find evidence that it might. That's a story for the next video in this series. Have you ever noticed that quiet static in a crowd? Write in the comments when you first felt it. Read a few of the other answers while you're there. You'll notice something warm underneath all those words. Subscribe if you want more breakdowns like this on human nature.